We're going to talk about a few things today in relationship to some of that, the waiting and patience, right? I heard someone say once that patience isn't waiting. Patience is keeping a good attitude while you're waiting. It's not just the act of waiting, it's about waiting and trusting. And that's more involved, isn't it? We talk about things like, okay, Yahweh, I know you said you're going to do these things, but when? When are these things going to happen, right? We are learning to wait and learning to follow him in the midst of all that. And Israel had it the same way, and there's some lessons we can learn from that. When Israel first came out of Mitzrayim, do you realize their initial call out of Mitzrayim wasn't supposed to be 40 years? It was supposed to be 3 days. When they were first to come out of Mitzrayim, they were to come 3 days into the wilderness to worship. And things can happen in life that kind of seem to reroute us. And then what do we do? What do we do in those scenarios? Do we feel like Yahweh is leading us 3 days? Or do we feel like a 3-hour tour? I'm glad you all laughed. I'm showing my age here. And if you don't know what we're laughing about, I'm sorry. It's just we're old. That's all. There is such a thing as syndication, though, so there's a possibility. But do we feel that way sometimes? Do we feel, Yahweh, you're leading me, but can you get on with it? In this week's Torah portion, the emphasis that we talked about in this week's Torah portion is, what do you do when God leads you the wrong way? Do we try to tell Yahweh, you said you're going to deliver me, you're going to lead me, you're going to do some great things, but you're doing it wrong. You ever think that he's got a bigger plan and we need to follow him? We need to follow him. We may not have all the ins and outs and the whys and the reasons, but we need to follow him. We need to trust him. The lack of trust, another word for trust in the Bible is faith. Emunah means trust and faith. It's the same word. So a lack of trust can prolong the process. Yahweh is faithful. He'll give us plenty of opportunities to trust him, but that could prolong the process. So we need to follow him. We need to have faith. So let's move on with some things. So the expectation of a 3-day journey. Like we said, when they came out of Mitzrayim, the first place they were to go was not into a land called Israel. Not even to go wander in the wilderness for 40 years. When they first came out of Mitzrayim, the initial point was 3 days and then worship. Right? So how do we know that? Back at the burning bush, Yahweh speaking to Moshe in Exodus 3:18, he says that they will listen to your voice, speaking to Moshe, so you will go along with the elders of Israel to the king of Egypt and say to him, Adonai, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Now please, let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to Adonai our God. See that? The initial thing when they first went to Pharaoh was let the people go so that they can go 3 days into the wilderness and worship. Remember, Yahweh says that when you come out, he told Moses, when you bring the people out, the sign is you're going to come back to this mountain and worship. So that was the initial plan. And we know what happened. Pharaoh said, nope, not going to happen, not going to let them go. And that, again, prolonged the process, right? Let's move forward a little bit. Exodus 5. Exodus 5, 1 through 5. So afterward, Moshe and Aaron went to and said to Pharaoh, this is what Adonai, God of Israel, says. Let my people go so they may hold a feast for me in the wilderness. What was that feast in the wilderness at the mountain called? It was Shavuot, wasn't it? The Feast of Weeks. At the mountain, it is where Yahweh was to reveal himself to his people and to give him his word, to show them the way of life that he had for them so that they can go and inhabit the land in blessing and fulfill the promise that he said. Remember the blessing he gave to Abraham. Now these descendants are walking and fulfilling toward that promise. The Pharaoh says, who is Adonai that I should listen to his voice and let Israel go? I don't know Adonai, and besides, I will not let Israel go. I mean, he admittedly said, I don't know your God. I don't know who Yahweh is. And he said, and besides, even if I did, I'm not going to let him go. Well, so they answered, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to Adonai our God, else he may strike us with pestilence and with the sword. Verse 4, but the king of Egypt said to him, why do you, Moses and Aaron, make the people break loose from their work? Go back to your labors. And Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now so numerous, yet you would have them rest from their labors. Guess what, guys? Yes, that's it. So you would have them rest from their labors? Yes. What did we say? Shabbat was created at the very beginning, on the seventh day, Shabbat, right? And when the people came back to the mountain, Yahweh reiterated that. Even when he said, I want you to build me a tabernacle so that I may dwell within you. Even he said, in the importance of building that place, he said, don't build me the place and forsake the reason why you're building it. Right? Don't let the physical structure take place of what I want to do in your life. I want to dwell within you. So you need that time to dwell with him. And Shabbat was a time to refocus just the everything else in the week that happens. And Pharaoh, we know, wanted to tear apart from that. Moving on, Exodus 8:27 or 8:23, depending on which translation you're reading. So we will go 3 days' journey into the desert and sacrifice to Adonai our God as he has ordered us to do. So we read these different places. They were to go 3 days into the wilderness to hold a festival and to sacrifice and to worship. So this is a good thing. 3 days. Can you imagine the expectation as they come out of Mitzrayim, when they finally get to come out? Can you imagine if the elders and all the people that went with there in the initial beginning, right when we just read, if they're like, okay, so we're going to be 3 days. How long was it? It wasn't 3 days, was it? No. So again, we see things start to happen. And as we read through the story, can we kind of see some of ourselves in the story? So the idea was we should go out and worship, and in order to do that, they were to have rest. So again, the leading of Yahweh in the midst of all of that. Leading of Yahweh. So we look at how Yahweh was leading the people out, and also relates to how Yahweh will lead us today as well. Yahweh always led his people, how? By his grace and his mercy. Yahweh didn't lead his people, with the iron rod. He led his people with his grace and his mercy. Just listen to my voice, follow me, walk in my ways. This is all he's asked for us to do, right? Walk with me, and there's blessing, and there's life, and there's things that I desire for you in the midst of that. When Yahweh led them out, how many times do we see the people complaining? Moses, you brought us out here to die. Moses, you led us out here. Sorry, who led them out there? They were following the pillar of fire and cloud. Who led them out there? Just because Moses was at the head of the line doesn't mean they were following Moses. They were following Yahweh. And so who led them where they're at? If we're following Yahweh and we end up in a difficult situation, we're always looking around for somebody else to blame, right? Because someone has to be to blame for why I'm feeling miserable. And no, Yahweh is leading us to a place where he wants us to be real with him and make that connection and acknowledge he is leading me no matter what it looks like. I'm following him, and I will follow him no matter what happens. Right? So these are some of the things that we see in this week we're going to talk about today. Exodus 13, 17, and 18. So after Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them along the road to the land of the Philistines, although that was nearby. For God said the people might change their minds if they see war and return to Egypt. So God led the people around the way of the wilderness to the Sea of Reeds, and Bnei Israel went up out of the land of Egypt armed. So it says that he did not lead them. The word there, lead, is nachah, from the word nacham. How many of you are familiar with the word nacham? Know what it means? Nacham means rest or comfort. Right? You may hear, like in the prophets, read comfort ye my people, right? Nachamu, it's nacham, it's the word that's given there. Nacham, so he led them, is the same word that's used here to have peace. It's etymologically related to the same word. Okay, look, this is used again in Exodus 13:21. Adonai went before them in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way in the pillar of cloud. And then in Exodus 15:13, it says, you in your loving kindness led the people. In your loving kindness, in your grace, in your mercy, you led your people, that you guided in your strength to your holy habitation. So Yahweh led them to a point that seemed impossible, so that they would learn to trust him and rely on him. He led them there. Again, like I said, the word nacham is etymologically related to the word rest, nuach. Where else do we know the word nuach? From Noah. We'll get to see that in a second. So Exodus 33:14, it says, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. Yahweh led them so that he could give them rest. So the word that's used there, rest. Also a word that's used for resolution. A different thing, but to show that the word's used there. Proverbs 29:9 says, if a wise man argues with a foolish man, he rants or laughs with no resolution. The word there for no resolution means no rest. So again, the word is rest or peace being used there. Said Noah, also the word used. Noah found grace. Hin, again, that word rest, same as led them in the way. Noah and Hin, it's the same thing. It's just kind of like his name. It's backwards. Noah and rest, Noah and grace. It's the same thing. It's the same word, same letters, same things that are given there. And the idea behind that is that Yahweh's leading. If we are following Yahweh's leading, He will give us what? Rest. He will give us rest. So we already saw it. Exodus 33:14 says, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. But listen to what Yeshua says. Matthew 11:28 and 29. Come to me, all who weary and are burdened, and I will give you what? Rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle, humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. He didn't, even in that, mean an absence of turmoil. He meant rest. Peace does not mean there's nothing happening around you. Peace means although things are happening around you, you've got that something within you that is whole. Because in this world, in this lifetime, you're never truly going to have peace in the world, but you can have peace in the midst of it. That's because Yahweh living in you will give you that peace. We receive Him, walk with Him, to find rest for our souls. Promises finding rest. So they were led, and what was their situation? You know, they're following Yahweh. What was their situation? What was happening? Yahweh says, I will lead you, and you will find rest. But He led them, and they found turmoil. What do we do with that? Exodus 14. And I spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to Bnei Israel so that they will turn back and encamp before Pi-hahiroth between Migdal and the sea. You were to camp by the sea opposite Baal-zephon. So they were to turn back toward Pi-hahiroth, which means the opening of the mouth or the opening of liberty. In the place that is testified by name, it is an opening of liberty. What do you think God would want you to focus on? If He leads you to a place that means the place of the opening of liberty or a gateway to freedom, what are you going to expect? The thing is, if Yahweh's leading us in this place, do we expect that? Or do we have our eyes turned in other places, even though we're following Him? And even in that, how well can we follow Him unless our eyes are on Him? You know, we can't say, I'm following you, and we're walking. What happens if you look this way and walk that way? You're going to walk into something, or you're going to trip, or you're going to fall, or whatever. You know, like if you're a kid and you're learning how to ride a bike, you ever notice you go where you look? That's a lesson for us too. There's a big pothole in the road, and we can't get our eyes off that pothole. Where are you going to go? You know, your focus is where you're going to go. So we need to turn our focus back to the Father. We need to turn our focus to Him and not in the circumstances of the things that we see in life. So at the place of liberty, we learn they are not looking at the right thing. Exodus 14:11-15. So they said to Moses, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness because there were no graves in Egypt? That sounds like a real heart of faith, right? They were scared. All they could understand is where they were at and what they were seeing with their eyes. You know, they came to a place where the sea is on one side and then Pharaoh and his armies on the other side. They don't know what to do. They're like, okay, what do we do now? This is where they were. This was a serious situation. Yahweh's going to lead you. Yahweh's going to deliver you. Yahweh's going to save you. We're like, yes. And then we get in a situation where we're like, I can't swim. What do I do now? And we turn around and look, and everything from the past is coming right at us. What do we do? Yeah. Look. Have you taken us away to die in the wilderness because there were no graves in Egypt? Have you dealt with us this way to bring us out of Egypt? Did we not say to you in Egypt, leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians? It was better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Fear will cause you to say crazy things. You know that? Fear will cause you to lose focus of what's important and will cause you to say things that will contradict the faith that Yahweh has asked you to have for Him. What are we told here? Verse 13. So Moshe says to the people, don't be afraid. Stand still and see the Yeshua of Yahweh. Stand still and see the Yeshua, the deliverance, the salvation of Yahweh. He will perform this for you today. He will do this for you today. And you've seen the Egyptians today, but you will never see them again. I want to break something down here. First off, he tells them to be still. To stand still, to be still. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of what? Power and love and of a sound mind. Psalm 46:10-11 says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. Yahweh Sabaoth is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Isaiah 35:4. Say to those with fearful hearts, what? Be strong, be encouraged, stand strong, and do not fear. For your God is coming to destroy your enemies. He is coming to save you. So we learned deliverance that was given was by Yeshua. Stand and see the Yeshua, the deliverance of Yahweh that He is giving you. And we can learn Yeshua truly is our deliverance for everything, isn't He? Yeshua is the one we rely on to deliver and to save and redeem. He is bringing us into the presence of the Most High. And even in Exodus 6:6, we see here, say to the people of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burden of the Egyptians. I will deliver you from the slavery. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm with great acts of judgment. And in Exodus 6, we see that Yahweh is explaining to Moshe 4 different ways that He is redeeming His people. He said when He brought them out of Mitzrayim, this was an act of redemption. And we know that redemption is all about Yeshua and all about the things that He has given. In Acts 4:12, it says there is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name given under heaven by mankind by which we must be saved. Jeremiah 17:14 says, heal me, Yahweh, so that I am healed. Save me, so that I am saved, for you are my. There's no if there. We trust Him because He made a promise, so we can trust His promises. Isaiah 43:11-12 says, I am Yahweh. Besides me, there is no Savior. I have declared and saved and made known there was no foreign mighty one among you. You are my witnesses, declares Yahweh, that I am El, that He is God. There is none else. There is none other. And we know Yeshua said, I and the Father are one. So He brings us to this place of liberty that's declared a place of liberty and a place of freedom. But as we look out, we don't see it as a place of liberty. We don't see it as a place of freedom. They weren't looking at the right thing. It says, Adonai will fight for you and you will hold your peace. They had to refocus. A lot of times, have you thought about this or understood this, even scientifically proven? The things that you say, you reinforce in your belief. The things that you say, you reinforce within you. Are we speaking faith? Are we speaking things of trust? Are we speaking the word of Yahweh? Are we reading it out loud to ourselves? Are we speaking life? Or are we speaking contradictory to these? If we're going to speak contradictory to the word, let's take the advice that Moshe gave. He said that Yahweh will fight for you. Hold your peace. Be still. But I also want to point something out. He didn't say that so nicely. We try to be very poetic with some of the things in the word. It's kind of like, be still and know that He is God, right? That's not what Moses said. They're yelling, they're complaining, and this is quite a large group. I guarantee he wasn't, real calm. Like, Joshua. We read in the book of Joshua where we read, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's a great thing, right? It's a great quote. And it's true, and it's something for us to hold dear. But realize when Joshua said that to the people, it wasn't like some nice, peaceful, eloquent thing. He was rebuking them for their idolatry and calling them to a place of repentance. And so this was what was going on. And that's what was happening here with Moses too. Because the word harash, it's used there, it means to focus decisively. It means to be deaf or unable to absorb auditory stimuli. And we read in the scripture, who made man's mouth or makes man mute or deaf or the seeing blind? Is it not I, Adonai? Is it not I, Yahweh? I'm going to put it this way. And I'm just going to say it the way it would translate this way. Yahweh will fight for you. Shut up. There's no way around it, guys. You know, if you see a child having a fork in hand and going for an electrical outlet, are you going to say, no, no, no? Or are you going to stop? Get their attention, stop, and get it away. No, you don't know. Time to act, time to do. Yahweh was working for the people, but he needed their attention. They needed to refocus off the problem, focus back to him. And that's what he said. And I love how it reads here, because we read, and as we read through this, one of my favorite stories that we see in the scripture, in the Torah, is that the people are complaining to Moshe, that's it, you brought us out here to die and all these things. And Moshe, the figure of faith and everything, right? Standing here saying, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. Have faith. He's going to fight for you. Just be still, be quiet, just wait, and you're going to do these things. And then Moshe looks up to heaven and goes, God, what are you doing? You know what Yahweh says? What are you talking to me for? Really? Yes. You ever think about that? Does he ever talk to you that way? Be like, Yahweh, what are you doing? He goes, what? That's in the story. What happens? And I says to Moshe, why are you crying to me? Tell Israel, do what? Go forward. Tell Israel to keep moving. Now consider this. They came up to the water. In their mind, you can't go any further. Like I said, they can't swim. So they go in the water. What are you thinking? If I go in the water, I'm going to die. I turn to fight Pharaoh, I'm going to die. So do I die or do I die? What do I do? Yahweh said, I never told you to stop. So keep going into the water. But I'll die. Yes, I know. Maybe that's the point. Especially when you understand that the waters represent a mikvah, baptism. Pulled them out. That was a place of redemption. Then he brought them through the water as a place of a mikvah, and then brings them to the mountain to impart his spirit and his life and his word to them. Same thing when he redeems us. Repent. Be baptized. Mikvah. Receive his word, receive his life, and learn how to walk in it and grow in it. Things he's called us to do. Keep moving. Keep going forward. If you've fallen down, get up. Keep moving forward. It's time to continue to press on. Look, we learn things in the journey. One thing, don't allow the sin in our lives or to be around the influence of it, right? In other words, keep moving forward. Keep doing what you know you're supposed to be doing. Keep walking with Yahweh. Keep learning, right? We need to continue to learn and to do things along the way. This is some of the things that we see. Romans 8:13 says, if you live according to your old nature, you will certainly die. But if by the Spirit you keep putting death practices in the body, you will live. How do we do that? How do we walk according to the Spirit? We walk according to the words that Yahweh has given us, and we learn day by day, step by step, how to walk with him and how to, the flesh dies daily, right? That we are continually walking with Yahweh in the midst of all of these things. 2 Corinthians 7:1 says, therefore, my dear friends, since we have these promises, let us purify ourselves from everything that can defile either body or spirit, and strive to be completely holy out of reverence for God. Learn to walk in his ways. Put off the old things, the old nature, the old man, the old ways, the old habits, the old things, and put on life. Put on new. So what happens? What happens to Israel? So they go. They travel for 3 days, right? They come through the water. The Egyptians are drowned. They're covered over. They rejoice, break out a prophetic song. It's an amazing thing. Look how great Yahweh is. And they're rejoicing and singing and dancing and praising and having a great time. And then they go 3 days into the wilderness. And what happens? How quickly we forget. Right? What happens next? Exodus 15:22. So Moshe brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days into the wilderness, and they found no water. How long can you go without water? How long can you go without wanting water? They go 3 days, and there's no water. They're in the desert. Verse 23, so they came back to Marah. When they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of this place was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moshe, saying, what shall we drink? The way this reads, literally, you literally read this, how it breaks down. It says they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. It doesn't read they couldn't drink from the waters of Marah because the waters were bitter. That they couldn't drink from the waters because the water was giving a reflection of their current state. They went 3 days in the wilderness and they're complaining, give us water. We need water. Moses, again, you brought us out here to die of thirst. What's going on, Moses? Give us water. Right? People were bitter. Instead of being thankful that Yahweh has led them out and the miraculous things that they've seen or heard, I mean, surely if Yahweh's delivered them, surely He didn't bring them out here to die. Surely He was going to give them water. But again, it's not patience. Remember, patience is not waiting. Patience is your attitude while you're waiting. What happens? Recap of the situation. The 3 days into the wilderness, they found no water. They couldn't drink of the waters because they were angry. They were discontented. They didn't like where they were in their life, and they were complaining about their situation and their circumstances. They were bitter. People murmured, saying, so what are we going to drink, Moses? Well, the bitter waters. 3 days. 3 days. That's all it took to start complaining. 3 days ago, they were singing songs of victory and praise on the banks of the water. The Egyptians, the water covered over them, and they're singing praise and how great and glorious Yahweh is. And 3 days later, that's it. We're going to die now? This shows us something about human nature, though. If our relationship with Yahweh is only about what He can do for me or what miracle He can do next, when the miracles stop, so does our love. When Yahweh stops doing what we think He should do, we don't love Him anymore. Do we love Yahweh just being who He is? Follow Him? Or are we only going to love Him and serve Him and honor Him when He gives us what we want? That's not faith, guys. That's what Yahweh's called us into a deeper place of. So how do we respond in various trials? James, I like James. James is just one of those very in-your-face kind of books, isn't it? You know, James is good for giving us a good a reality check, right? James says, James, a servant of God, and the Lord Yeshua, to the 12 tribes in dispersion, greetings. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. Count it joy when you meet trials of various kinds. He didn't just say what kind of trials. He says whatever they are, just the various trials that we encounter. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Some translations say patience. Let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete and lacking in nothing. Deuteronomy 29:18 and 19 says that we're to keep in mind and to worship Yahweh and to serve Him and not to turn away. Because what happens if we turn away? He says, so beware lest there should be among you a man or a woman or a family or tribe whose heart turns away this day from Yahweh your God and go to serve other gods of these nations, that there would be among you a root that bears gall and wormwood. And it come to pass, when he hears the words of this curse, that he bless himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, although I walk in the imagination of my heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. He's saying, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase it. No, I can do whatever I want, and God's going to bless it anyway, because, me and God, we got an understanding. And this is right when Yahweh is declaring the blessings of the covenant and the cursings of the covenant. Remember, when these blessings and cursings were proclaimed, they were to a people whom He redeemed. This is not a matter of for those who are His and those who are not His. These were for a people whom He redeemed. He said, if you walk with me, if you search for me, if you follow me, these blessings. But if you turn away from me, then these curses. See? And so what it's talking about here is somebody who hears the Torah, who hears what the Torah has to say, and say, yeah, I don't want to do that anyway. I got a relationship with Yahweh. I'm just going to do what I want. And he's okay with it. Warning us against it. Hebrews 12, 14, and 15 tells us, follow peace with who? With all. Follow peace with all. And holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. Looking diligently, lest any man fail the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up troubles you, and thereby many are defiled. Consider that for a moment. It says, be careful that no one misses out on the grace of God. That's pretty severe, isn't it? How do you miss out on the grace of Yahweh? I mean, His grace is beyond compare. What can we truly fathom? But here He tells us, you have a root of bitterness. It'll defile you. It can actually defile others too. Remember the phrase, misery loves company? People aren't satisfied being miserable. They want other people to be miserable with them. And this is what this is telling us about. Once that bitterness and resentment and anger and hatred and these things spring up in our life, it kind of pours out over. We need to replace that with the Spirit of Yahweh, love, with joy, with peace. Let that bubble up in our lives and let that pour out over. Right? Isaiah 5:20 says, woe to them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness. I put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. In other words, when we try to do our own thing and try to put our own stamp of approval on it, no, we need to just follow Yahweh. The things that He has declared good and righteous and holy, these are the things we need to follow. The things He's told us to avoid, we need to avoid. The things He told us are not beneficial for our life, don't follow these things. We're like, what, these things? No, turn and follow Him in His way. Ephesians 4:31 and 32 says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for the Messiah's sake has forgiven you. So they're 3 days, and then they come to a place where the water is bitter. Understand, what's water for? Water's supposed to give life, right? But if people were bitter, their approach to the water, they only saw the bitterness that was in themselves. The water reflected their spiritual state. It was revealed to themselves. But then, what happens? Exodus 15:23 to 27. We're looking at the verse 25 is the emphasis here. But he cries to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a log, and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. And there Yahweh made for them a statute and a rule, and there He tested them. Interesting. So it says, and He showed him a log. And speaking of Moshe, He showed him a log. Literally what we look here is, and He taught him. He didn't show him, He taught him. Who did? Yahweh. Yahweh taught him regarding regarding a tree. So He taught him regarding this tree, to throw the tree to the water, and then the waters will become sweet. I believe this is a preliminary thing about Yeshua cross, stake, or whatever, or the tree, or however you translate that. Showing the bitterness, the resentment, the anger, these things that we hold on to. They're supposed to be life, but we hold on to these things with the appearance of life, but we're killing ourselves by taking of it. But yet, that which was bitter, change it to sweet. The death of Messiah wasn't the end. Death and the burial and the resurrection, life that we're looking at. And the result of that, Him going into the heavenlies by means of His own blood, placing in the most holy place life before the Father, so we can have atonement and to come in to worship before Him. Nehemiah 9, verses 11 to 14. It says, you divided the sea ahead of them so that they could pass through the sea on dry land. And you hurled their pursuers into the depths like a stone into the turbulent waters. In a column of cloud you led them by day, and by night a column of fire, so that they would have light ahead of them on the way they would go. You descended on Mount Sinai and spoke with them from heaven, and you gave them right rulings and true teachings, good laws and mitzvot. And you revealed to them your holy Shabbat, and gave them mitzvot, laws, and the Torah, through Moshe, your servant. And again, this is what was happening. Yahweh was teaching Moshe about the things that the people would need to know to have a good life into the land that they were going. And that's what we see here, what Nehemiah is talking about. To bring them out and redeem them wasn't just to bring them into the wilderness. He was to redeem them, set them free, to bring them through the water, to bring them to the mountain, to impart His Spirit to them, to reveal His life, His character, and His heart, and His desires for His people, so we can learn to walk in it. We just follow Him. We can have that. Isaiah 12:2-3. To see God is my salvation. I am confident and unafraid. For Yah Adonai is my strength and my song, and He has become my salvation. And you will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. The word salvation is Yeshua that's given there. So you will joyfully draw water from the spring of Yeshua. Living water. That which gives life. That which turns bitterness to sweet. That which can take out the resentment, the anger, and everything else, and give us life that sustains. Exodus 15, verse 26. So he said, this is after the tree, after all this, he taught him regarding these things, and then he says, if you diligently listen to the voice of Adonai your God, do what is right in His eyes, pay attention to His mitzvot, keep all His decrees, I will put none of the diseases on you which I put on the Egyptians, for I am Adonai who heals you. He declared to them, and all he really was asking them to do was follow me, hear my voice, do the things that I am showing you, because this is my heart for my people. In other words, a commitment to a firm covenant with Him. Preview of the Torah, if you will. He says, if you listen to me, do what I ask, I will make you whole. That's what He's telling us. You listen to me and do what I ask, I will make you whole. And that's what we learn. As we submit to Yahweh, He blesses us. And He will cause us to come to be that living water that's dwelling within you, because that living water is Yeshua. If He lives in you, then that living water dwells within you, and you can't help but have good fruit. You can't help but let that fruit grow. Because, fruit trees need water. They need good water. Right? So let that grow. We see Psalm 107, 17-20. So some were fools through their sinful ways, and because of their iniquities, they suffered affliction. How many of us can say, yep, we've been there? Yep. But, we keep reading. They loathed any kind of food, and they drew near to the gates of death, and they cried to Yahweh in their trouble. See that? Came to a point in our lives where we said, yeah, this ain't working. And then Yahweh says, here for you. So that's it. They cried to Yahweh in their trouble, and He delivered them from their distress. So He delivers you, and then what? He sent His word and healed them and delivered them from their destruction. Isn't that what Yeshua did for us? Yeshua, remember John 1 in the beginning, was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. Verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And so He sent His word to us and healed us and delivered us. We just need to follow. Psalm 19, 7-11. The Torah of Adonai is perfect. Look at this. Restoring the inner person. The word of Yahweh is perfect to restore the inner person. The instruction of Adonai is sure, making wise the thoughtless. The precepts of Adonai are right, rejoicing the heart. The mitzvah of Adonai is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Adonai is clean, enduring forever. The rulings of Adonai are true, are righteous altogether. More desirable than gold, than fine gold. Sweeter than the honey or the dripping from the honeycomb. Through them your servant is warned, and in obeying them there is great reward. See that? We have reward in just doing what He said. The reward of keeping the word is reward enough. It is a blessing if we just follow Him and submit ourselves to Him in His ways. Proverbs 3, 5-8. Trust in Adonai with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. That's good for us to focus on sometimes, isn't it? Because we don't always understand what Yahweh's doing in our life. So trust Him. Don't lean on your own understanding. Follow Him. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Adonai and turn away from evil. Look at verse 8. It will be healing to your body, refreshment to you. See? Keeping the word is a blessing spiritually and physically, gives us life and sustains us. Psalm 23:3, you may know this one, right? The 23rd Psalm. What does it say? He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. James 1:25 tells us, "So whoso looks into the perfect law of liberty, who looks to the perfect Torah of liberty, and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man will be blessed in his deed." We're not talking about being redeemed or born again here. We're talking about someone who is born again, someone who is redeemed, looking to the word and continuing in it, then he will be blessed in what he does. James 2:12. So speak and act. I like how it kind of adds that one in there too. Speak and act as those who will be judged according to the Torah that gives freedom. The Torah is lawful if you use it lawfully. It is just if you follow in justice and righteousness. We will be judged. And if we're following Yahweh, we will receive freedom when judgment comes. Why? As Yeshua says, if we're following him, he took that penalty for us. The wages of sin is death. He took that penalty for us. But if we're following after his heart, we're going to keep walking and doing things that lead to freedom. We're going to keep walking and doing things that learn to bless one another and not harm one another. And as we continue to pray for one another, lift each other up, and bless one another, Yahweh's going to return the blessings back to you as well. So back to Exodus 15, verse 27. So then they came to Elim. See, so then they had the bitter water, then the water turned sweet. They drank the water, and then as they drank the water, Yahweh's telling them, see this good water that I'm giving you? I want you to listen to something. Keep my words. Do the things I'm telling you. Trust me, and you will continue to have this good water. You will continue to have. I will make you whole. I will make you complete. Follow my words. Do these things, right? Then, verse 27. So they came to Elim where there were 12 springs of water. Not just a little bit of water. There were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. What's normally on these palm trees in these regions? Dates. So there were 12 springs of water, 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. When I say 12 and 70, what do you think of? 12 tribes, 70 nations. Right? Speaking of all Israel and the world. So here's a picture. If the people of Israel, if the people who are called by his name will follow after him, listen to his voice, walk in his ways, then this water of life and refreshing will not be just to his people, but will to be for the people of the nations. Isaiah 42, 5 through 7. Thus says God, Yahweh, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people on it and spirit to those who walk in it. I am Yahweh. I have called you in righteousness. I will take you by the hand and keep you. I will give you as a covenant for the people, a light for the nations. He's called you for a greater purpose. That is for you to be a light to the nations, a light to the people around you. The world is dark, so shine in it. Verse 7, open eyes that are blind. Bring out prisoners from the dungeon and from the prison, those who sit in the darkness. Isaiah 49, 5 through 7. So now Yahweh says, he who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel might be gathered to him. For I am honored in the eyes of Yahweh, and my God has become my strength. And he says, it is too light a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and bring back the preserved of Israel. I will make you as a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. Thus says Yahweh, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, the one deeply despised, abhorred by the nation, the servant of rulers. Kings shall see and rise, princes, and they shall prostrate themselves because of Yahweh who is faithful, Holy One of Israel, who has chosen you. These are powerful scriptures, amazing things that are given. Isaiah 60. Arise and shine. Kumi Ori, arise and shine, for your light has come. The glory of Yahweh has risen upon you. Behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the people, but Yahweh will rise on you, and his glory will be seen upon you. And nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Zechariah 8:20 and 23. Thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, people shall yet come, even the inhabitants of many cities. The inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go at once to entreat the favor of Yahweh, and seek Yahweh Sabaoth. I myself am going, and many people of strong nations shall come to seek Yahweh Sabaoth in Jerusalem, and to entreat the favor of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, in those days 10 men from the nations of every tongue will take hold of the robe of a Jew, saying, let us go with you. We have heard that God is with you. Who is this we're talking about? I believe this is talking about Yeshua. And how can 10 men represent all nations of every tongue? The only time we see something like this making sense is when the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom were dispersed into all the world, being 70 nations, or what we talk about in Scripture. We talk about 70 nations. We're talking about like the 70 descended from Noah, those who became the nations of the earth. So we're talking about the 10 men representing all nations of every tongue and every tribe. Only way we can have 10 men representing the whole earth is the 10 tribes that were scattered into all the earth with the promise of returning. And not just Israel, but all who were called by his name will come, turn, have a place of covenant, the people that are called by his name. We're going to walk with him and grab hold of Messiah, grab hold of Yeshua. But as we do that, learn to follow him. Yeshua said, follow me, but what does that mean? It means we need to learn to walk as he walked. I've heard someone say that many people want to have faith in Yeshua, but they don't want to walk in the faith of Yeshua. We want to walk in the faith that he redeems us, he restores us, he has this place of covenant relationship with us, and that's awesome, but we don't want to do what he did. We don't want to walk the way he walked. That's what we're called to. But keep going. Matthew 28:19 and 20 says, go therefore and make what? Disciples. What does disciple mean? What's the word for disciple? Hebrew is talmid, right? What does talmid mean? Student. Student. How do you make a disciple? How do you make a student? Really, you can't. The only way you can make a student is if someone is willing to be a student. And so what that means is those who are willing, help, teach, instruct, show the word, show the way. Go and make this. Go and help proclaim the word, proclaim life, proclaim liberty. Show there is a better way. Show the heart of the Father. Proclaim his word. Then baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teaching them to what? Observe all that I commanded you. It's not just about, so give your life to him and everything will be okay. That's such a lie. Give your life to Yeshua. Give your life to Yahweh, and it will get harder. Guess what? You'll have hope that you never had. You'll have peace that you didn't have before. You'll have things that you didn't have. That's what he's telling you to. So come, make disciples. Be a disciple. You have to be a disciple to make a disciple. None of us know it all. We're all still learning. So as we give ourselves to him, we learn from him, we sit at his feet, then we need to help each other out in that process. Go make disciples, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And then the encouragement. Behold, I am with you, how often? Even to the end of the year. He is with us always. He has left you, he will not forsake you. He is with you. We need to acknowledge and understand that. Even when we look, and there's water, and there's Pharaoh. God left us. Even when you look, and the world is coming at you, and you don't see an answer or see a way out, has Yahweh left you? Maybe Yahweh is putting us in situations for his great name to be known. Maybe those that are watching you are actually not really watching you. They're watching to see what Yahweh is going to do. Maybe the result of you following Yahweh is going to lead to others coming to him. After the sea, we read that the people around them, they heard of the great fame of the God of Israel. And Yitro, remember when Yitro came and he met Moshe out there and he says, yeah, we heard what happened. People heard about Yahweh. But what happens next? So they heard, but after they heard, they sought out a person. Testify of the goodness and the experiences. Be that person. People hear. They don't know what to do or what to think. That's where you come in. Go help make disciples. Encourage one another. Pray for one another. Lift each other up. Be what Yahweh has called you. Show His heart, His goodness, His glory. There are people looking for Him. They don't know how to find Him. Let Him find them through you. Amen? Amen. Amen. All right, let's all stand. Numbers chapter 6. Yahweh told Moshe and Aaron that when you bless my children, I will place my name upon them, and I will give them peace. He has declared, when you bless them, you shall bless them, like this. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, guys. Blessings to you all. Have a blessed week. And Lord willing, we will see you next Shabbat.